Following, following that, this one doesn't sound. Can you hear me? Following that, we're gonna do something in honor of the heroes of COVID, acknowledging all those that have contributed. Well, a significant amount of those. I don't think we can acknowledge all of them. It's absolutely wonderful to see people back out and a crowd back at the Walk for Freedom. And lastly, there will be 2 community dialogues. And there's going to be a few guest speakers from our partner organizations and others that will deliver their own messages. I'd like to now hand over to the girls from Lenasia Muslim School. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. We stand before you representatives of the children of the world. Truth is always the first casualty of war. Innocence is the second. Children are our innocence. It is a daily occurrence that Palestinian children are killed. Children caught in the crossfire, killed on their playgrounds, or while sleeping in their beds, or standing up to fight for what they know is right. No amount of propaganda can ever justify human suffering. Oh, children of Palestine, be strong. Your home will be glowing vine. We see you. We feel you. We mourn you. And we honor you. Our hands are tied to our eyes. Our ears are deaf. Only few of us heard you cry. But I say to you, hold on. It wouldn't be long before you see the sun. It wouldn't be long before we hear your solitary strain. It wouldn't be forever, this pointless emblem of pain. Biruh, bidam, nafdika ya Aqsa. Be strong, children of Palestine. Freedom will wipe your fear.
Well done to girls from Lenasia Muslim School, and it's this type of solidarity that is so important. This type of solidarity that is so important from South Africa to Palestine. We must realize the value that the solidarity brings, the awareness, the activism, the urgency, and the need to create and build young activists who will stand up for justice, not only in the Palestinian context, but in every context. Moving over swiftly, I know some of the winners are in a rush. I'd like to call the ladies on to collect their prizes, along with Noor to present them. So it's Noor Jahan, Ismail, and Najma Jasat. Please make your way to collect your prizes. These ladies have finished first and second. They finished the walk first and second. So big round of applause for them. Take a picture with. Take a picture. Well done, well done, well done. We will hope to see you at next year's walk. Amen. Okay, we can move on to the men. Zaid Sheikh, Bashir Bakas, and Iqbal Bamji. Well done. Bashir Bakas. He's also a volunteer, so engaged in lots of activities. Well done, well done, well done. You're welcome. And lastly, Iqbal Bamji. I believe it's on behalf of Iqbal Bamji. In the under kids category, we had Zaid and Zamir Kasu, who've already collected their prizes as they had to leave. There's a little girl, I'm assuming, whose name is Zahra Zahia. Your name was taken down. Unfortunately, the writing is quite bad. Um, but if you do identify as that person, please do come forward. Um, yeah. Okay. I'd like to call on Nazim Adam to deliver a message from the Palestine Solidarity Alliance. Thank you, Kamal.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning, Jumelang, namaste. Um, it's wonderful to see the turnout this morning, and we're truly appreciative to the supporters of this Walk for Freedom. The Walk for Freedom is much more than just a community walk and event. Over the past few weeks, some of our members have been visiting high schools, and we've been doing educational workshops around Palestine, around human rights and human dignity for all. The Walk for Freedom is an annual event that we hope inspires young people and ourselves to be more active in the struggle for Palestine. Over our own struggle, we know how much courage and how much hope we took when we heard of people overseas from the anti-apartheid movement were supporting us in far-off places across the world. It inspired us on the ground in our own resistance and our own work against apartheid. And we hope that activities like this continue to inspire us, inspire Palestinian people across the globe. From the PSA, we just want upfront, I want to just thank all of our sponsors. We will be presenting them with something. There's just been too many for me to mention right now, but we really appreciate that. And the volunteers that have come forward. The community effort of Lenasia is just truly remarkable. I'll speak on 2 or 3 things this morning on behalf of the PSA. The first thing I'm going to speak is about the COVID initiative. The second I want to speak about is resistance and our solidarity with the international BDS movement. On the first, I want to say that as a community, like many others, we lost hundreds of people during COVID. We have families, all that have been impacted on when we lost loved ones. We also know the difficulty that came living under lockdown. And many of our community members, our families, our neighbors, it was an odd situation. Oftentimes, our beloved were taken away by paramedics and never returned, which made closure very difficult for so many people and communities. As the PSA during that period, and we have some elderly people that work in the PSA, and I really take my hat off to them. But we distributed hundreds of food parcels at old age homes, in informal settlements across the Lenasia and wider community. And our sponsors were generous because the need was local. And as the PSA, we try to base ourselves within our community and the needs of our community, as well as the international struggles of human rights. And we believe that that's important because we have to be consistent in it. But coming back to the families and our beloved, this year we partnered with Sabri Chisti, and Abu's going to say a few words after me. We've decided that we want to create a memorial garden in Rose Park to remember those people that we had lost during this pandemic. And it was really a serious pandemic. So I'm glad to say that today, together with our community service organizations, Sabri Chisti, Fountain of Inspiration, Some Foundation, the CPF, all these security people, people that assisted us during that difficult time, we are going to, with you, begin the process of creating a memorial garden. And right at the end of today's program, we will be planting some olive trees in a space earmarked by City Parks for us. I think this is really a great initiative. We will also be, in a moment or two, honoring those individuals and those organizations that were supportive of our families, our neighbors, in our community. Those people that came out, those people that went to do the last rites for the deceased, the ghusls, those people that came as paramedics to our homes and so forth, the nurses, the doctors that volunteered their time. So that's the first part of today's program. Sorry. All right. The second part of the program is a community dialogue around the role of media and media bias when it comes to Palestine, but also just generally to people's struggles. And that will be facilitated by Hassan Lorgat, media activist and PSA member. But my message for everyone today is a simple one. It's a simple one which means a lot for the Palestinian people. We know that in our own struggle, there were different forms of struggle. There were mass mobilizations, there were events like this, there was an anti-apartheid movement, there was an armed struggle, and there was a serious boycott campaign against South African products. And I think it's about time that we all make an internal personal decision that we are no longer going to support the oppressor. You see, when we call through the BDS coalition for people to boycott Puma or Hewlett Packard or G4S or PSA's call for Clover, it's because those organizations, they're not the supporters of Israel and the oppressor. They are part of the system of oppression. And if you buy their products, you are supporting a system of oppression. And you cannot tell me that you stand for Palestine and then still go and purchase products or support companies that uphold the apartheid state of Israel in all its entities. We have to be consistent in our struggles. I know that there are many young people who say, PSA, it's only the armed struggle, the resistance. Yes, there's a place for resistance. We have chosen a non-violent, constitutionally correct position to fight in our space. And we do that in a means that can take everyone with us, and that is through BDS. And we have lots of campaigns around boycotts, divestments, and sanctions. And we need more people to join us in this struggle and to make it more effective so that nobody wears Puma anymore from our communities. And you have to make it a family decision to say, we don't support oppression in any form. We are going to be consistent in our opposition of apartheid, our opposition of all forms of oppression. And I'm saying to people, we have to educate ourselves. We must be consistent in our resistance to oppression, whether it's the Moroccans who are oppressing in Western Sahara, whether it is it's the Saudis bombing in Yemen, where it's Bashar al-Assad. We have to be consistent in our speaking out against all forms of oppression, including some of the oppression that's happening in our own communities. Let's think about where we are as South Africans. We have lost hope in all of our political leaders and political parties. So that means we have been consistent in standing up for truth and justice because they have failed truth and justice. And we need to find a new mechanism of electing leaders from our own communities that represent us. And it's time that the constitution of this country be more accommodating and inclusive of leaders on the ground, people who do the work. So when we speak about our political struggle and our political position, we have to be consistent in all spaces that we work in. With that, we know that Palestine is dear to all of our hearts. because it is, we identify with it as being people who have lived through apartheid ourselves. But we identify with it also because we know that of the oppressed people, the oppressor in this case, the state of Israel, enjoys international impunity. They get away with everything. They never held to account. We see big speeches, and perhaps correctly, against Russia for invading another country's land. But there is no consistency when it comes to Palestine. And that's what makes Palestine more important for us to raise our voices, because we want a form of international justice that is consistent and which raises the right of the poor for human dignity, for freedom, for justice and equality. It's not going to be an easy road. We have to stand united. We cannot be opposing each other in the solidarity. We have to join and support all campaigns. I cannot believe arrogantly that PSA alone is right, or BDS is right, or BITS PSA is. We have to find common ground. And I'm saying, and we're saying as the PSA, our common ground in South Africa is through an anti-apartheid movement like we had for us. And that anti-apartheid movement is the SA-BDS coalition. We have to put all our backing behind the BDS movement to ensure that everyone has a part to play in undermining, in breaking, not just because they are not supporters. Puma, HP, they're not supporters. They are part of the mechanism of oppression. They are part of the oppressors. And us supporting them, we become supporters of oppression. We will account for that. We need to start breaking that cycle. So viva BDS, viva. And with that, I thank you again for being here today with us. Amandla. Abu, if you're here, can you join us? Can I get someone from some foundation and someone from Fountain of Inspiration? Okay. Okay. Auntie Mary. We'll talk to you just, we'll give you time just now, right? Let's just run the program, right? Okay. I'd just like to acknowledge my good friend Bassem from the embassy. Welcome, Bassem. And I'd like you to also acknowledge Auntie Mary. Auntie Mary is close to us. You know that one of our patrons was Uncle Don Matera, who we lost earlier this year. So I'd just like to acknowledge Auntie Mary for being here with us. Thank you, Auntie Mary, for being here with us. Bassem, you're going to help me. We're going to hand out some certificates, and then you'll say something. Okay. All right. You want to say now? Can we do this part, and then you'll talk? But Bassem is going to help us just hand out some of the certificates. Firoza, if you can join me as well to hand out some of the certificates on this side, right? Okay. And then, Abu, if you want to just say a few words about our initiative and what we've put together for today.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning, Jumela. Firstly, on behalf of Sabra Chisi, we'd like to express our gratitude to the Palestinian Solidarity Association for partnering up with us this year for the walk. It's appreciated that people within the community notice the good work that Sabra Chisi has been doing, is been doing, and inshallah will continue doing. And also likewise, on behalf of Sabra Chisi, we acknowledge that during COVID period, it would have not been possible for us to provide such a service if we didn't have the support of the community. Really, members from all walks of life came together as a community. What Nazim has just been speaking now in his speech is all about coming together. It's all about uniting. And that's what we've seen during the COVID pandemic. People came together to offer assistance. We started off with the welfare initiatives. And this was done in conjunction with the CPF, with various other organizations, making sure that people during lockdown had some meals to eat. Then it spun off, unfortunately, where COVID started hitting us and the people within our neighborhood started getting sick. Our paramedics risked their lives to go out and save others. With them, there was a bunch of volunteers, including the Sim Foundation and Fountain of Inspiration, and the various other organizations that made sure people had oxygen concentrators at home. People didn't know what was oxygen concentrators, how it's supposed to be used, but these organizations worked together in unity to ensure that no citizen in Lenasia would suffer. And they made sure whether you had wealth or you had nothing, they made sure oxygen concentrators were available. So I think on that verse, a big round of applause for organizations like some Fountain of Inspiration, Sabri Chisti, and all the others that really got together during this. Unfortunately, after life, we know there's death. And then when that knocked onto our doors as a community, it was only because the community members could come together and do it. On the one day, I recall we had 19 funerals. And if you have to ask people that were there, how is this possible? It was only possible because of the will of the Almighty, number one, but because of the various other hands within our community. When men folk and women folk came together just to serve and just to do their duties. People came together as security companies. There was no difference. There was no difference between color and creed. There was no difference between which qom you came from, whether you Surti, whether you Miabai. There was no difference between Sunni and Tabligh. There was no difference at all. But now, unfortunately, after COVID, we're seeing the divisions is back creeping upon us. It's breaking our community again. Like Nazim said, we have to ask ourselves why. We have to question ourselves first. As a community of Lenasia, there's a lot that we can do. But we can only achieve it if we come together. We have to break stereotypes. We have to break egos. And as a community, stand together. Because we are still going to be here. The community of Lenasia is still going to be here. And that's why, on behalf of Sabri Chisti, we call upon people to join us, be part of us. The new vision of Sabri Chisti is partnership. We want to partner with various organizations and make sure together that we can serve our communities better. So once again, thank you to the PASA, Nazim, and the rest of the team for acknowledging Sabri Chisti and also for making us be a partnership in this. And Nazim explained about the garden. That's one huge significant thing that's going to be left for our community. This COVID pandemic, unfortunately, for many of us, we lost our loved ones, etc. This remembrance garden, we want people to get involved in, people to feel part of it, and let this be something that goes on in the history books for Lenasia. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got a message. So one of the key doctors that was instrumental in supporting was Dr. Fatima Lambert. And I've been talking with her, but she's unable to be with us today. She sent a message. I'll ask Noor to read that out, and then we'll hand out the special awards.
Salams and hello everyone. I'll be reading the message from Dr. Fatima Lambert. She says, Assalamu alaikum, good morning. It is with great regret that I was unable to attend this wonderful initiative. Nazim has requested me to say a few words, and so I take this opportunity to salute all you heroes standing here. Our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him, has said, the most beloved of people to Allah is the one who brings the most benefit to people. And this is you, Lenasia. The pandemic has allowed us to try and be of benefit to our community, and through the eagerness and unity of Lenasians, we were able to assist them in their time of need. Remember your dedication, determination, and eagerness, whether medical or non-medical, is admirable, and your reward lies with the Almighty. Shukran to the PSA for recognizing these wonderful heroes and carrying out this wonderful gesture. May Almighty reward all of you. Jazakallah, Dr. Fatima Lambert.
Okay, with that, we're going to be calling on our organization representatives first. And then if I can also get, if there are some of the paramedics and the security guys, we'll also be calling you up. So be ready for that as well. Later on, we will be just handing out some certificates to our sponsors. But first of all, an organization that I think emerged during COVID, a group of friends, one smaller part of the community, and they formed some foundation. I don't know why you call it some foundation, but anyway, they are also now branching out, and listen to my language, branching out to some green. So they are also part of the greening project for this park. So let's give them a round of applause. Bassam, if you can hand this certificate out. And we have Uncle Bai, and Big Bai. And Shiraz from some foundation. If you can just hand that over, and you guys can just stand one side after that. Thank you. Shiraz, if you guys can just take that. And then, so a long-time partner and organization doing good work. We'd like to call on, come, Farid, join them there. Is the Fountain of Inspiration. They also do medical supply and equipment to needy people with no charge. And they deliver, I don't know, Eunice, you'll read on their pamphlet how many beds, how many oxygen concentrators. They've been servicing communities right around Lenasia, and they have links throughout South Africa, I think now. Not yet. They're getting there. So Fountain of Inspiration. Thank you. All right. You want to say something, Eunice? Thank you. All right. Do we have someone from Pulsate? Is there someone from Pulsate? So one other ambulance service that did a lot of good work here was Pulsate. I know that they had another activity, so we'll hold it. Riza, are you here? All right. Okay. So, Shireen, you want to join me here? Firoza? Shireen, come and join me on this side. We got a few more to give out. Doc, come. Doc, if you can take this side. Belly, please join Eunice there. He's feeling alone there. Can I get a representative from Salam Media? They have partnered with us. So throughout the last few months, we've been running a weekly program on Salam Media, linking up with activists on the ground in Palestine, and it's really been awesome. We know that we got to restart that. So Salam Media, we'll keep it for you. Come or collect. Salam Media is behind the camera, not in front of the camera. There are two security companies that always support us. You'll remember when we went to the Zionist Federation and also to Mary Fitzgerald. These are community security companies, and they're always here to support. So Shiraz, I have another one for you. So SP Security, give him a round. So every year they help us and maintain this event. And the other one is my good friend Shaim from Lethal Forces Security. So is there, I was hoping there's a representative from the Lenasia Community Police Forum. I know Ibrahim's on a cause, he's not around. Is there anyone? Shiraz. So the CPF has done a lot of work also in assisting us and assisting during COVID. So we've given them a certificate. Yeah. And for this one, I'm going to ask all those people in uniform to come to the front. So if Sabri Chisti can come, Abu, and we're going to hand this to them. We have individual certificates for all your members. Those that have given me names. Those who have not, we'll print for you, don't worry. But we want to give each human being that gave of their time and their effort. So we'll hand those certificates to you because it's over 200. It'll take the whole day. All right, I hope you appreciate that. Thank you. Come. Come, give it with them. Shireen, you're going to hand out the certificates for, they are in files. The files can go. And then the other
Nazim, come sit.
You're coming. Is Sophia Lambert here? Sophia? So this is Southeast Spire of volunteers.
After Gary, the main guy of Lazy was the come next to the center.
Pastor? Um,
Viva South Africa, viva! Viva! Viva Palestine, viva! Viva BSA, viva! Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Dear comrades, brothers and sisters, on behalf of the Palestinian people, its leadership, the ambassador and and all the Palestinians, allow me to express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to South African people government, ANC, and the Alliance for their unwavering support and solidarity with our people and their just cause. We also extend our deepest thanks to the ruling party for its firm stance and affirming of downgrade of the level of diplomatic representation with Israel at the party policy conference. We also extend our deep thanks to Communist Party for its progressive decision toward Palestinian cause in their conference this year. As I proud to be represented our people here today for fourth times, I would like to extend sincere appreciation from the heart of them to solidarity to Palestine Solidarity Alliance (PSA) for their support our just struggle. Dear brothers, sisters, comrades, our struggle against appetite for freedom, independence, dignity, defense our lands, and our historical right in Palestine. In fact, this struggle is not a religious conflict between Muslims and Jews, as Zionists claim. The Palestinian Jews and Christians suffer like all the people, like all the Muslim Palestinian. And you see what happened with Shireen Abu Akleh. Dear comrades, this year 74 years have passed since Nakba, the catastrophe of the uprooting Palestinian people from their historic land, and which they have lived for 1,000 years before any people, and founded one of the first human civilization. Israel only existed from 1948 with the support of great powers, particularly British and United States. This support started with the famous declaration of British Foreign Minister Balfour in 1917, in which he promised to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. The declaration and its consequence resulted in displacing more than 70% of Palestinian people, destruction of 531 villages and towns, committing more than 50 massacres against civilian people, and occupying more than 78% of our land. The Zionists occupied an entire country with its modern cities, educational institute, governmental health institutes, infrastructure, including airports. It's like taking over a fully furnished house. Is that fair? Is this accepted by any religion? The Nakba still continues in the daily basis through the policies of killing and destruction of homes, properties, targeting the holy sites, the policy of displacement and checkpoints, as well as the unfair siege and criminal war against people in Gaza Strip. And I would like to remind you that the settler break into Al-Aqsa every day to drink alcohol and dancing. This evidence that they don't believe this place is holy place for or belong to them, but belong to the Muslim. They only want to insult all the Muslim around the world. One day Allah will ask us what we did for the first Qibla and third of Haramain. Tomorrow, the settler, and after tomorrow, they said they will slaughter the Qurbani in the Al-Aqsa and will below the they call it shofar, the holy trumpet. Amnesty International, Human Rights, and Human Rights Watch, and Beit Salem, Israeli Human Rights, acknowledge that Israeli an apartheid state. And yes, and before yesterday, the president of Palestine said in his speech of at the United Nations General Assembly, the Israeli government allowed the establishment of the Jewish terrorist organization that practiced terrorism against our people and provided them all the protection as they attack the Palestinian and call for their expelling from their homes. At the front of this terrorist organization are Hell's Youth, the so-called price tag, Lahava, and the Temple trustees. This organization is headed by the member of Knesset. The president said, we call on the international community to put this terrorist organization on the list of global terrorism. Lastly, my brothers, sisters, comrades, so our people call international community, including progressive parties, trade unions, to label Israel as a apartheid state and impose all kinds of sanctions. Thank you. Viva South Africa, viva! Amandla!
Thank you, Bassem, for that very interesting speech. So we're going to now launch into the next part of the program, which is the panel. Sorry, the microphone seems to be taller than me. But we'll be having two different panels that, thank you, that we'll be engaging with today. So one is based off of unpacking media bias, and the other one is about building youth activism. We have an amazing, amazing panelists who will be joining us and talking from their experiences, and we'll be learning quite a lot. So I'd like to start straight into our first panel, which is the Unpacking Media Bias panel. Can I please ask the panelists to come to the stage? Facilitating the conversation is Hassan Lorgat, who is a PSA activist also involved in the South African BDS Coalition. He will be joined by Roshan Dadu, who is the coordinator for the South African BDS Coalition, and Anwar Jaitam from Media Review Network. They will also be joined by Sister Nadima, who will be speaking on her experiences, and they'll also be joined by Comrade Stian, sorry. And so chairing this session is my amazing comrade and also a PSA activist, researcher, and writer, Mahfouz Rafi. So can we have a big round of applause?
I'm going to move this to the side. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's try and unite. Watch. You're taking the legs off the. You don't unite by taking off our legs. Eh?
Can you straight? How's that? Okay, can I give you a mic? Yeah, of course, there's a mobile mic here. This mic is working better.
Who's going to start? You can't send him. He's a chair.
All right, you can start the program.
I think we're usurping the position of the chair. We must open up. Mahfouz is going to get water.
Oh.
Yeah, call him. He was doing his homework yesterday, so.
Yeah. So can I hand over to a young lady who wants to speak?
Here's Mahfouz, yeah.
Okay, fast. You almost took your position away.
Yeah. He's a coup d'etat. South Africa's ready for it.
Testing 1, 2.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everybody for joining us and for coming here. I think the discussion to have is extremely important. We all see the headlines monthly, daily, weekly. 6 Palestinians died, 1 Israeli was killed. That's a famous headline that was used in The Guardian, and we have variants of this time and time again. Palestinians somehow just die, but only Israelis are killed. And we know that this is a blatant misrepresentation of the truth. What happens time and time again is that Palestinians are murdered. Palestinians suffer from an oppressive apartheid regime. Palestinians suffer from settler colonialism. These are terms that we don't hear in the mainstream media. And unpacking that with me today will be our esteemed guests. They've all been introduced to you, and I'm sure they'll be able to give a deeper analysis of why that is the case. Why is there such a bias in international media, and why is there such a bias in South African media? You know, South Africa, we're relatively privileged. There's a lot of freedom of speech in this country. Our media is not as biased as the likes of the West, as the likes of the USA, but they still have their flaws. And we need to find out how, as activists, as media activists, and as people on the ground, as people in support of Palestine, we can encourage our media to take forward the principles that we espouse in our activism, and that we espouse truth, we espouse justice, and we don't, the terms we use are not agitational, they are factual. Why is this not always reflected in the media? How can we get them to use terms like apartheid? And when we face opposition, we all know the Zionist lobby, the international Zionist lobby is large, the media is large, and they have a textbook of responses that they send whenever there is accurate media reflections on what's going on in Palestine. Whenever people do call it settler colonialism, whenever people do call it apartheid, whenever people do accurately reflect that Palestinians didn't just randomly die, but they were killed by this murderous regime, suddenly we see the likes of the SA Jewish Report and some freelance writers who we all know are on a payroll speaking about anti-Semitism. And there's nothing anti-Semitic about calling out apartheid. There's nothing anti-Semitic about calling out settler colonialism. There's nothing anti-Semitic about supporting the right for Palestinians to resist. And when we look at things like our media, they are supportive in many ways of the right for Palestinians to resist. We know there was huge mainstream media support for Shireen Abu Akleh, who was unjustly killed. But they have a lot more to do, because Shireen Abu Akleh is fighting the same struggle as Ibrahim Nabulsi was. And when he was killed, the media was not as loud or as supportive. Ibrahim Nabulsi was a resistance fighter, an armed resistance fighter, but he was not fighting a different struggle to Shireen Abu Akleh. He was fighting for freedom, he was fighting for justice, he was fighting for truth. And so the battlegrounds are not exclusive. When we mourn Shireen Abu Akleh, we mourn the resistance fighters who are killed by Israel as well. And so we need to get this message stronger and clearer and link it principally. Why does the media not link this? Why does the media not see the principle of of resistance for the media, of resistance for Palestine? Why do they see it as separate to other resistance and just causes? And how can we make sure that it's not only the media but our communities do not see the resistance and support for just causes as separate? Palestine is not separate. Palestine, the Palestinian struggle is our struggle. Palestine won't be free. Until Palestine is free, we are not free. And thus is the same for a great number of oppressed communities who have been mentioned. And so how do we principally align as media activists and as activists in general to make sure that we stand for truth always, to make sure that we stand for justice always, to make sure that we stand for freedom always? I'll leave it over to my panelists. I think I'll begin with Uncle Hassan now.
Yeah. Thanks, Nafis. I mean, I think what I'm trying to do, we've got a diverse panel here, so we're not going to ask them to introduce themselves, because if they do, the 25 minutes we have will be finished, right? So let us try and make a bit of a conversation of it, okay? From Afghanistan to a Christian activist, to a Islamic activist, to BDS activist, to a general working class trade union, other ALIS activists. Let's have a conversation, right? We all know that the media is said to be the fourth estate. We all grew up with it. But what does it mean? It is supposed to mean that the media keeps a check on power, government power, how it spends the accounts, etc. But often, if you look carefully, it is not critical of corporate power, the power of the corporations that help to write the laws to make sure that government is soft on corporations, right? And then you find that they cover struggles that they love. How Afghanistan is covered is in a very particular way. These are mad mullahs running amok, hide away your women, etc. China is always covered as a country that is mysterious, is the yellow peril. And there are more American missiles on China than China is on any other country. How Russia is covered, especially now, is that of an enemy nation, right? When we look at all these, they will try and give bits and pieces of other countries, but always from the point of view that serves Western interests, right? When we here in Palestine solidarity movements have to be careful how we portray the Palestine struggle. I shared yesterday with Stian a beautiful homemade video by a Christian lay activist talking about why Jesus Christ, Nabi Isa, was a Palestinian. And then when you tell some of our own bigots here, they want to get a heart attack, right? So the truth is, we have this wide panel. And I want to come back also to to BDS. In the 2 years that we've done great work, I sometimes think that there are some of the media we are losing. They cover everything but Palestine, right? So we create our own media, and some people think that we are so great because today my thumb is so, I send 10 forwarded messages on the YouTube or whatever. There's a role for that. So here's the thing. We need to tackle elite media, mainstream media, right? Which is not of our making. That's how we challenge it. But social media itself is not of our making. It is a tool that is used to control us if we are not smart, right? Now, how do we change these messages in favor of Afghanistan? The dominant narrative I hear from my sister here, who likes rooibos, I heard on the radio, and she's very angry there's no rooibos here. How do we challenge this idea that Taliban is a bunch of mad mullahs running around that are just killing people? How do you change that narrative?
Thank you, Hassan, brother. Can you hear me? Yeah. First, I would like to say something that I always do in my language. It's like stari mashay, khudai do ki chikhawe, jurwe, rogwe, takrawe, sahet kiwe, mina mohabbat kiwe, dustay kiwe, pokai kiwe, zaitosi patingara kakai. Says the people of Afghanistan, when we greet you, the first thing we do is we ask about your well-being, your health, and we wish for you instantly goodness, strength, unity, and happiness, and abundance of wealth and health. Once we're done with that, and then we go to the gossip. But I am very, very grateful, truly, to be here and to be among such wonderful human beings who are using them. We are all vessels, you know. We're vessels for transmitting information, and we have the choice of good and bad. And so I'm from Afghanistan. I was born in Afghanistan. It makes me feel so good to say I have come from Afghanistan and I'm going back to Afghanistan to take all this goodness with me. You know, when Taliban entered Afghanistan, when they took back their homes, their lands, when they came back for us and never gave up on our country and our people and our men and our children, I was so happy. I said, yes, yes, colonizers out. Bye-bye, go home. Everybody told me you're crazy. I said, what? The Canadian government global affairs contacted me, said, you have to leave. You're going to get killed. You have to go home. I said, I am home. I am in my country. I am with my people. They said, no, they're going to kill you because you wear a turban and you wear these clothes. I said, but these are my country clothes. Why would someone from Afghanistan? I said, you know, I need to find that out. I need to know, how is this possible? How can someone from my home, my country, that sacrifice everything to protect their land are going to kill someone of their own? I need to find this out. They said, no, they're going to kill you. And I had calls and calls from relatives, family members, friends, communities, well, that I have to leave. And I made a decision to stay in Afghanistan. I was already in Afghanistan. I arrived to Afghanistan 2019 from Canada. It was time to go home. Thank you, Canada, for everything, but my home is Afghanistan. I need to be with my people, with my community. I want to speak my language. I want to eat my food. I want to wear my clothes. And it is important to me. And I enjoy it and I love it. And even if it's not good, I will try to correct it, but it's my problem. It's my people. We'll sort it out. So we will take care of it and we will try. But no one is going to come to our country, our people, and decide how we're going to dress, how we're going to eat, and how we're going to look, and create a narrative about my people, especially my great men, my good men. I feel so bad for all of you men. You're going through so much, and now they're using women against you, our women, to destroy you. It's crazy. Anything they can get.
So my sister,
Yes, sorry. I don't want to
find a
take
way,
too.
we've got to find a
Yes,
way of sharing
sorry.
this
Yes,
25 minutes.
I'm
So the
sorry.
question is,
I'm used
how
to
do you
usually.
how do you challenge this dominant narrative?
Mhm.
Because even in this country, I'm a proud man,
Yes.
but I cannot deny that men are accused, and rightly so, of raping 10,000 women in 3 months in our country, according to our own police.
Okay.
So that is a reality. Now,
Yes.
male power is real. How do you change
So is
the
woman
image?
power.
How do you change the image that the Taliban does not have a
Okay.
progressive attitude towards women?
I am an Afghan woman. I'm from Afghanistan. I'm here. I live in Afghanistan. I'm real. I'm living. I have an NGO called Dream Voice Act. Now, when the Taliban came into power, they gave me my logistic and trading company, encouraging me to focus on trade and get this begging charity, this way how these NGOs that have come to our country justifying creating an independent community. So I am real, and this is my story. I cannot speak for everyone, and no one is perfect. We're all trying. I understand we have challenges in Afghanistan. I know I have my challenges with my new government, but it's not all bad. The way the narrative is put out about Afghanistan is not good. It's not right. Be respectful to my men. Be respectful to my women. Be respectful to my people. Do you know we've been bombarded? And you know what's crazy? What's been going on for 21 years in Afghanistan? Do you know how many men and women and children are murdered? I see them every day. When I bring aid like rice, the women are like, sweetheart, where's my son? They killed my son because he had a beard. He was going to school. We were saving money for him to go to India to become an engineer. He was my only son. Where's the justice for them? How can you justify murder in the name of race, religion? So yes, Talibans are not perfect, but they're not murderers. But if you come to my home, to Afghan, listen, I'm not here for the Talibans or the Americans, all that now. I'm here for my community, and I'm here for my people. And also now Taliban is something else they're using. Now, can we start saying the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan? Because they've diluted the word Taliban. They've made it ugly to the world, and they've put these. I'll say something quickly. When they first came into power this year, they hung some men. I don't know if y'all see it. You can Google it, and everybody was like, "Oh, they're hanging men." Do you know what these men have been doing for 15 years? They were kidnapping children and selling their organs. So I'm sorry, in my country, if you come to my home and you take my child and rape it and take their organs, I'm not going to put you in jail, give my tax money for you to be fed. I'm going to take you out. There's no space for you in my world. So if you call that a terrorism, then listen, that's not terrorism. We have a certain way of dealing with certain acts that have been done to our people. And the way the narrative is put is that they're killing and hanging men. No, we took out men that were taking organs of little kids and selling it to their neighboring countries. You know? Yeah.
Thank you. I think,
Sorry.
yeah. I mean, I think the point that you're raising is that Afghanistan defeated a big imperial power,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you are saying you require some time to find your rhythm by respecting all the rights of others. But I want to come to Roshan now. Roshan, I don't know whether you guys have helped to stigmatize this. I was reading this in our house, and our children got a shock. Daddy, you're reading Jewish Report. They said, right now, can you explain the strategy of the BDS movement to unite people by challenging elite media power? Because I'll then go to Jetam, who talks about how the production of their own materials has been useful. And then Stian will talk to us a little bit more about other voices of Palestine that are more marginalized, but they shouldn't be marginalized. Over to you, please.
Thanks, Hassan. Yes, I think Hassan may be the one of the number one readers of the Jewish Report, and that's partly because he's done amazing work with the PSA and the coalition in actually challenging, taking the time and the evidence, really lots of time and effort to do this and pursue it to the extent that Hassan did, to the point when the Jewish Report made an article calling the coalition anti-Semitic. It was to do, as I'm sure you all know, around the cartoon that was produced by Gewusa, the trade union involved in the Clover dispute, clearly wasn't anti-Semitic, but they made a huge fuss and noise over it, taking it up through the press council and then challenging every time they tried to appeal, writing more and more arguments, all the issues they tried to use, like we're not an entity, Hassan is an individual, he's supposed to be an entity, to the point that the decision was not only upheld on the appeal, but the press council, because of the refusal of them to abide by, and these are constitutional rights in our country that we should be exercising, they refused to apologize to us and to do what was required by the decision from the press council, to the extent that the press council, for the first time ever, expelled them. So they are no longer part of the press council, which just goes to show, I mean, they represent international Zionist voices. The articles, you can read the same in the Jewish Chronicle in England, the same in the, Jerusalem Post, in talking of the English language Israeli right-wing newspaper. So I think that's pretty much a pretty big victory, that we can challenge them and we can use the South African constitutional processes, like with the Mogoeng issue, to do so. But it is hard work and it is painstaking work, and it's not something you one day this and the next day that. So I think we also have to bear in mind that some of the work with the media is quite slow and painstaking, but can produce very strong results. Then getting articles into the mainstream media, we've had a media workshop to try and understand better, because one thing is, and it's useful to use our community media. The other thing is to challenge the Zionist media in South Africa. But the other thing, to reach more people in South Africa, and particularly in this case, I'd say Christian South Africans, because of the way in which Israeli Hasbara has infiltrated all, in fact, denominations, in a sense, of the Christian church. But I'll leave it to Stian to say more.
But you just talk a little bit. You guys were very flexible. You and Sibey went to High FM, Jewish radio station. Please share that.
Well, in fact, yes, we had a right of reply because the Chai FM, the local Zionist radio station, Hassan had arranged it around this same issue of the Jewish Report being expelled by the press council. So myself and Sabeh from the Gewusa Union went on Chai FM. In fact, the presenter ended up saying he didn't think the cartoon was anti-Semitic, which was quite extraordinary, which just goes to show that, you know, we sometimes think they're a monolithic narrative, the Zionists, but in fact, I'm sure, I mean, he was definitely off message for most of the community. I don't think the chief rabbi would have agreed. So I think it was a demonstration. I mean, it was a terrible show because they just shout you down when you start saying anything that they don't want to hear. But nevertheless, I think to demonstrate at the very least that they're not a sort of as monolithic, and that we can begin to shift the narrative, even within their own ranks. But more importantly, to try and reach broader across South Africa, the mainstream media. And I know often people say we must complain. They, they don't give coverage to Palestine, and they don't. But that's not always because they're hostile. It's because it isn't an issue that they don't cover much foreign policy anyway. They often take a whole story from the wires. We used to be called the wires, whatever you call it, like they'll republish a Reuters story or they'll republish an AP story. Because they don't have capacity, they don't really have the interest, but not necessarily because they're totally hostile. So what we have to do, we think, is not only complain around the use of language, because also then you can use the right to reply, but use that right to reply. We have to make our own content that we can try and get into the mainstream media. And I think that's very important, to write our own narrative, to write the Palestinian story, to give voice to Palestinian people. You don't always get into the mainstream media, but if you can find an angle, particularly if you find a South African local angle, then an opinion piece might get in, a right to reply they must publish. if someone is slamming us or something, or so, it's a good way in which to get into the mainstream media. But now I'll pass on to using our own media.
To
or making
Jetam,
our
yeah. Jetam, the MRN seem to be an op-ed machine. I mean, you guys are writing op-eds more than I have time to read them. And now you publish this book. Please tell us how you work and how we can advance the struggle.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. It is still morning. I'd like to first start off by saying a few things. One, Zionism is racism. Israel is an apartheid state, and the media does suffer from a bias. We at MRN are a think tank and an advocacy group challenging Zionism, particularly in the media, and challenging Islamophobia. And we have been doing this consistently for a very, very, very long time. I have with me a book here today called Shattering Zionist Myths by one of our founding members, Dr. Feroz Osman. This is actually his second book. He's also the author of another book called Why Israel, which he co-authored with one of Lenasia's own residents, Suraya Dadu. And it's also currently available within South Africa. We know that the media tells us what is happening in the world, and whatever it focuses on, it throws its spotlight on and focuses on, that really captures people's attention, and that's what resonates in people's mind about what's happening in the world. So when the media stops talking about a certain part of the world, we think that that issue has quieted down, the issue has wrapped up, and there's nothing to talk about anymore. And that's what they have done with Palestine. And also what they have done continuously with Palestine has been to try to equivocate the struggle of Palestine, that is a struggle between two equal people, and to frame it as a conflict, to frame the injustice against Palestinian people as a religious issue, and it use very carefully chosen words to create a perspective in people's minds that what we are dealing with here, it's, the civilization of white men who are coming to civilize the world against a bunch of crazy Arabs. That's how the media currently always portrays the issue of Palestine. And it's highly, highly Islamophobic as well. Because how often do we hear about Christian Palestinians who are suffering injustices in Palestine at the hands of the Zionist apartheid Israeli machine? Those are questions we have to ask. So at MRN, what we have done is we have consistently addressed these kind of issues, and we have come to the point of not just turning out op-eds, but also turning out critical works such as Shattering Zionist Myths, so activists can arm themselves with information and start to engage media on the local level, engage in communities on the local level, ward councillors, educators, opinion makers, engaging each other, and also challenging national media and international media. Our works have also received critical reception and very welcoming reception by people like Dr. Ramzi Baroud, by people in the Palestinian ranks who are resisting occupation, such as Dr. Mahmoud Abu Zahar, Muhammad al-Hindi, people from the Islamic resistance movement, those who are very intent on not settling into some kind of a Bantustan two-state solution where Palestinians will live on those lands like animals in a zoo. People who want real democracy and real freedom for Palestinians and whoever lives in Palestine. So if we do not challenge media narratives and we are not clear in our articulation of what is happening in Palestine and really giving voice to Palestinians on the ground and asking them what would they want, as opposed to us superimposing a narrative onto them, then we cannot complain about the current media bias. But at MRN, we have been consistently challengers. We ask you to support us, and we ask you to read our works, to read other works, and to critically engage. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to ask our Right Reverend here to speak right. Please, Stian, tell us, give us some background to your experiences, your visits to Palestine, and your the recent conferences that have been ignored by all, not only the media.
Thank you, Hassan. Calling me a Right Reverend, I've been accused of worst in my life on that one. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me say my experience in engaging with the media on the Christian message from Palestine was in 2009. Let me just take us a step back. In 1985, South African Christians had a document that is called the Kairos document that was fundamentally critical of the apartheid system from government, that P.V. Botha and others said this is the will of God and for all of other reasons, etc. And they pulled the rug from under that, from the churches and politicians, etc., etc. And obviously that rattled the security and political establishment in its own way. In 2009, Palestinian Christians, and I'm not saying that the church hierarchy, etc., activists, Christian activists inspired by the South African document, had a witness, as we call it, on calling the occupation and the theological and Christian justification thereof a sin, and calling it that it is a Christian right and obligation to resist this. There is no doubt about that. Just a few pointers in that. And we thought when we came back from that conference that this is going to be an easy sell in South Africa. I mean, given the background of which the churches and Christian community in its own way, in warts and all, played in the liberation struggle in South Africa. Absolute silence, ignoring, irrelevant. Who are these Christians? When did they become Christians? Who were the missionaries? Number one, these were the people, descendants from the early Christians, the first Christians, number one. So it is such a confusing thing for many in the media to digest what is happening. But the basis of that has also, and I must say this, a Christian foundation. And I'm not proud of saying this, and I'm not bad-mouthing. I'm just saying this seems to be something that needs to be taken into consideration. Because many people, whether they are active in churches or actively Christian or practicing Christianity, have been influenced at a very early age by Christianity, particularly in the West. Whether they are church-going or not is not the issue, but there's a socialized thing in them that you don't criticize Israel. There's a very and from there it grows, and I don't want to go into all that detail, but that kind of thing that need to be cracked, almost a dome that need to be cracked in many, many, many people's minds. And it's a dome that is not going to be cracked only by giving different information, etc., etc. It sits much, much deeper. And the interesting thing, and Hassan, with a moment or two, just the power of that Kairos document from Palestine was a message, first of all, into the Christian community, to remind the Christians to say, listen, we cannot stand and support or enable injustice everywhere. And it was the power thereof is that they say a liberation struggle, that's in effect, a liberation struggle has two aspects. One is solidarity with the oppressed and those who suffer, the victims of injustice. No doubt about that. The other one is what happens to the oppressor? Is there not a liberation of the oppressor that also needs to take place as well, apart from just kicking out? The reason for that is, and this is, I just speak very broadly on this, is that their sense, somehow, their sense says the highest commitment, the highest calling, the highest whatever commitment to resist injustice is to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Paulo Freire, Bishop Tutu, Frank Chikane, and others reminded us that if we do not liberate the oppressor and the mind of the oppressor, you know what happens? We internalize their mindset. That is what Paulo Freire said to us. And then history repeats itself. My own history of that is the Afrikaners went through what is now called the South African War. And what happened in 1948 when, let me say, we got the power? I wasn't born then, but nevertheless, apartheid happened. How did it happen? Because we internalize the mind of the oppressor to the extent that that is almost all that we internalize. And I'm saying that is a message, it's a powerful message that we need to reflect on even ourselves as activists, and to say, where do our activism and the way we think perhaps perpetuate the injustice just in other ways? And I think that is part of what the media also need to hear from Palestine and the Christians in Palestine. Thanks.
So I know, Naz, we'll have to take another few minutes just to get a round of. The question that we have to ask, okay, we've discussed principles, we've discussed criticizing and challenging mainstream media and building alternative media, right? The question is this issue of values, okay? We cannot have this discussion without talking about Shireen Abu Akleh, a Christian Palestinian was killed in May, right? But you know, it's interesting, and I'm glad Salam Media is a supporters of this event. I had a lovely chat, as I often have, with Julia Ali, and she was raising the issue about the way the world is covered in black and white. It's true, you know, the darker people of the world have a certain coverage. But around Palestine, there have been white people who've been killed. Their crime has been they stood for Palestinians. Rachel Corrie is one. A bulldozer went over her, right? So the idea is it's everything but certain causes, right? So my question here is that how do we build this movement that can extend, appreciate your context, but build solidarity with you and understanding? And how can we criticize you but still love you, right? Because without it looking that because when we watch MSNBC, there's a big advert of a guy there talking about the Taliban, what they do to women and all that. And this is what we receive every day, right? So we need to be able to answer these things. So the question I'm asking each of the panelists, what for you are the rights that binds us across? I mean, I was in a march in Philadelphia, in Malcolm X Park. And everyone says, yeah, America's trying to impose a certain kind of sexual politics on us. This was a march of black trans women saying, stop killing black trans women. In this country, if you're different, you get killed as well, right? So the question then is how it's difficult. It's a difficult conversation. But what are the principles that you think should guide us to work together without necessarily sacrificing your movement, but at least learning from each other?
Thank you, Hassan, brother. Can I put it down? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Or I have to hold it?
Each of us get 2 minutes.
Okay. First, I want to really, I'm so proud and so grateful and happy to see all these young women and young men. Thank you so much for standing for your brothers and sisters in the other parts of the world. Palestine, Afghanistan, everybody's human. We're humanity. We're people. So, and all you young generation have social media, even though social media is also now controlled, because I'm being flagged on my Facebook. I have millions and millions of views usually, but now I'm very limited, and I am apparently violating because I use the word Taliban. I had to thank them for giving me my license, and that video has now limited me. They blocked me from exposure to my community. So my solution is, please, 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 no one is perfect. We have struggles in Afghanistan. We have Talibans that are being damaged, destroyed, killed, and they have anger, they have pain, they're trying to survive, and they've put women on the street that were paid, that I personally met, that if they did certain things on the streets, using women, once again, women have always been used for different agendas. In my country, women are used against our men. And if we care so much about our women, then let's start honoring our mothers, our sisters, not use it against the men. So all of you, please look at the narrative. Look at who's putting it out there. Don't just take it and start protesting. For example, recently, a girl, Mahsa, was killed. That's the news, by morality police. So I understand that. Let's find a solution. What is, yes, in Iran. But let me tell you something. There's also another girl, same time, killed in Iraq, a 15-year-old girl named Zainab, by military, the US military. So now my question is, both Mahsa and Zainab matter. Both their lives, they're daughters and nieces of someone. So why is the news running around Mahsa? And the way we women are honoring her. Women are being bombarded. My cousins that wear hijab are now being told on the street to take it off. What is one woman's death has to do with my covering? So you see the narrative that is being promoted because it fits certain agenda that's against certain values and beliefs in certain communities. But that girl Zainab, that is in Iraq, killed by US military, is not even in the news. So you know, you are my seniors, you have more experience. I'm just a simple woman from Afghanistan.
Usually that, but I have to
Yes.
give the 2 minutes to the others. So sorry.
Principles. You said principles that bind us. Well, I think what binds us to our sister here is anti-imperialism. I think what binds all of us is anti-colonialism, particularly when we look at the settler colonial state of Israel. Anti-apartheid. We recognize, and even our minister now has said in the United Nations, that Israel is perpetrating the crime of apartheid. Israel is an apartheid state, as was said just now. We know what that means. And I think it's very interesting to hear from Stian, who is speaking about our struggle and how important us understanding how we conducted our struggle and where we are now in terms of solidarity with the Palestinian struggle against apartheid, against Bantustanization, and against segregation, fragmentation, and so on. I think also what binds us is that we are against patriarchy. We are in favor of equal rights and justice for everybody. And that includes women, it includes people, however they identify themselves, whatever gender they identify themselves as. Because we know that if we don't stick together, if we, the people, the ordinary people throughout the world, the working class people, the poor throughout the world, if we can't stand in solidarity, we know the power of the people behind things like this, behind the corporations that try to manipulate our governments, as Hassan said, that then the media lets off the hook. We know how that affects even governments that start off perhaps purporting to speak for the poor. We know from looking just where we are now in South Africa, how that's turned out, how corruption sneaks in. So unless we can find commonality, and we do have commonality because we all are concerned about freedom, equal rights, justice, human rights for everybody in our country, in Palestine, and throughout the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amandla.
With regards to principles that bind us, I would like to turn towards my own civilizational tradition and my spiritual beliefs as a Muslim. And the Quran outlines us something for this here. Because we can't just be anti. We need real principles that bind us. And the Quran talks about God creating us and then making us into different nations and tribes from one man and one woman, the first man and the first woman, creating us into different nations and tribes so that we may get to know one another. So it's really about our common humanity and the shared values that we must all aspire towards are justice, and justice in all of its myriad forms. Because injustice can portray itself sometimes to be even in the most just of causes and in the most just of language. So we need to be very, very careful when it comes towards values, is that we are also not in the name of an alternative voice, just trying to be a counterculture, but we are not really offering justice. We need to be listening to the people on the ground, what is right for them. Currently, what we've always had a problem in the world, with, especially with colonialism, was trying to superimpose one value set onto the world. And in the post-colonial space, we've seen that as well. We've seen that with liberalism, and we've seen that with postmodernism as well. We have to ask, is that in the name of the people that are we speaking, are we actually representing the people, and are we actually representing justice? Thank you.
I can only go back to what I was inspired by, deeply touched, deeply moved, inspired and changed and challenged by the Palestinian Christians who knew the inside of jail and the everything that people experience in jail. They know the settlers, they know the checkpoints, they know everything of the Palestinian reality. And what did they say? Their political dream is they dream of a new land, not two-state, one-state, blah, blah, that, whatever that need to be called, a new land and a new human being capable of loving each other. That is the way we break through history repeating itself. Is it easy? Absolutely no. Absolutely no, because they say love under issues, under constant situations of injustice, is to be able in their language to see the face of God in the enemy. Yep. I have my experience of that. Somebody from Lenasia, me, white, male, Afrikaner, Dutch Reformed Church, mention all that, etc. At a conference where then, multiracial conference in the 1970s, I became ill. And that man from Lenasia treated me as a brother. That cracked my life. No easy. It is painful. I'm just saying there's a different way that we also need to engage with somewhere along the line. And that conversation has to get going, including in the Christian community. It is not a Christian thing exclusive, it is a human thing. And Mandela reminded us of that as well. So that is my little thing here.
People, I want to thank you. I know there's been a request for my sister to say something, but let me just say, ideas have consequences. We cannot act, and I've seen many progressive organizations act as if they are part of the commentariat. They want to comment on anything that moves. We have to organize for what we want. You want a certain idea, we need to put people behind it. We need to organize to change these things. Solidarity doesn't happen in a vacuum. International solidarity in particular is more difficult. We need to understand your country, your culture, etc. It's going to take us a long while, but I'm going to invite people to come and sit around you to talk a little bit more. Yeah, but I have to thank the meeting first. Close it, and then you can say something. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My sister, you can say something.
Thank you, Hassan. I just want to quickly say, one of the brothers here mentioned that give the money back. We can't get the past, but I do want to ask the South African community, the people, and your government, that I want you to come and work with the people of Afghanistan. I want the women that are doing great business to integrate with my women in Afghanistan and be the voices for my community and stop listening to the nonsense of the sanctions. How can you kill for 21 years and then leave and then block my food? So you come and work with my community. I would love for all of you to come visit Afghanistan and see it. It's not perfect because it's been damaged. But if we come together as a community, And also, I am for Palestine. I am for Afghanistan. Most important, for humanity. Let's treat each other the way we want to be treated. So come and visit my country and see everything with your own eyes.
Those who are interested, please come to the front and sign the register. Wait here, sit here. They're coming, yeah. Yeah, come.
Yeah.
Yeah, let him write his name here. That's it. Start your program. Online. Yeah, off stage, off stage.
Sorry, I'm neutral.
So they say one word. No, come this side. Come this side. Okay, okay.
We still have a long program. We want to plant the trees in about half an hour. So Noor is going to take over now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Mahfouz. Thank you, Uncle Hassan. We're going to swiftly move along to the next item on our agenda. Before we launch into the next panel, we're going to listen to a speech by a young activist, Mina, who would like to speak about Palestine. Mina, can I please ask that you keep it as brief and as short as you possibly can? Okay. Amandla! Away to
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Mina Shalabi and I'm a 17-year-old from Egypt. And I'm here today as proof that our young generation is going to be the reason Palestine will be free. And I say so this today because our generation does not stay silent on all the injustices that's happening in our beloved land, Palestine. As we are all here today to express our utmost solidarity and our love for the brave Palestinians who are fighting to protect Palestine from the Israeli forces that are torturing innocent men, children, and women. We are here to tell our Palestinian people that they should keep fighting to protect our holy land. And we are also here to keep raising their voices. As our sister from Afghanistan has said, that social media is in our hands. We can control what should be posted and what should be trending on social media. And social media is in the hands of the young ones these days. So please keep sharing and keep spreading the voices of our Palestinian people. And the day will come where every square inch of Palestine will be free from the oppressive rule. Our Palestinian is honestly going through a lot. Their land is being occupied, their homes is being demolished, and their families are being killed or imprisoned. And we cannot stay silent about that. So enough is enough. So free Palestine until we say it backwards. Palestine is free. And نحن معكم يا أهل الأقصى من قلب جنوب أفريقيا. جزاك الله. Free Palestine! Free Palestine!